But he also said they will go to these lengths to get others in to reach their endeavors.
Back the court.
Yes, yes.
Those are
Isn't it just stunning, Donné? I'll tell you and that's why I want the House of Destiny cut, because it was always House of Destiny.
Yeah.
And that's so appropriate for your father's ministry. And
Yeah.
he would say, I see you in the future and you look better than you look right now.
Oh, yes, he did.
This was his tagline. And it's such an appropriate one even for the prophecies of this hour, because there's a lot of people. I was just thinking that while we were sitting here, and that's what Kim would say.
Hello and welcome to the House of Destiny. We are going to worship today, so I encourage you, find freedom in your worship and invite the presence of the Lord into your space wherever you are and watch Him move. I can't deny what you've done for me. You loosed all my shackles and set me free. Rolled me and gave me the victory. I got a reason to praise. And I can't forget what my eyes have seen. What seemed impossible, I believe. Look at my life, we got His story. I got a reason to praise. And I won't let a rock cry out for me. I won't let a rock cry out for me. Oh, I'll never let a rock cry out. Yeah. Come on, you sing it right where you are. Sing it. I can't deny what you've done for me. Oh, you loosed all my shackles and set me free. Rolled me and gave me the victory. I got a reason to praise. I can't forget what my eyes, what seemed impossible. Yeah, look at my life, we got His story. I got a reason to praise. Say I won't let a rock cry out for me. Say I won't let a rock cry out for me. Say I won't let a rock cry out for me. Say never let a rock cry out. Never let a rock cry out for me. Oh, I never let I won't let a rock cry out, cry out, and cry out, cry out, cry out, cry out, and cry out, cry out, cry out, cry out, cry out, and cry out, and cry out, and lift your voice and cry, and cry, and cry out, cry out, cry out, cry out, cry out, and I won't let a rock cry out for me. I won't let a rock cry out for me. I won't let a rock cry out for me. And I won't let a rock cry out for me. I worship you. I have seen a holy place where all your glory shines. Your radiance upon my face, where our beating hearts align. I'm standing on the mountaintop in awe of all you've done, in wonder of who you are, and the love you have for us. What more could I want? What more could I ask for? What more could I need than you, Jesus? What more could I want? What more could I ask for? What more could I need than you, Jesus? Say I was hiding in my shame, and I was afraid of who I was. Oh, when I broke your heart from mine, you kissed my guilty face in love. Oh, what more could I want? What more could I ask for? What more could I need than you, Jesus? What more could I want? What more could I ask for? What more could I need than you, Jesus? What more could I want? Oh, what more could I ask for? What more could I need? Oh, Jesus, what more could I want? And what more could I ask for? What more could I need than you, Jesus, you? Oh, there's nothing else than Jesus, you. And I as you hold me. You hold me, oh, and I'm convinced you satisfy, and you love me, oh, you love me. Say, I'll give you all my desires as you hold me. You hold me, oh, and I'm convinced you satisfy, and you love me, you love me, and I'll give you all my desires as you hold me, oh Lord, you hold me, oh, I'm convinced you satisfy, and you love me, you love me, oh, could I want, and what more could I ask for? What more could I need than you, Jesus? What more could I want, and what more could I ask for? What more could I need than you, Jesus? What more could I want? Wherever you are, can you lift it up? More could I ask for? What more could I need than you, Jesus? What more could I want? And what more could I ask for? What more could I need than you, Jesus? You will never need more than you. You are refuge and protection. There's a table that you prepared for me in the presence of my enemies. It's your body and your blood you shed for me. This is how I fight my battles. Oh, there's a table that you prepared for me in the presence of my enemies. It's your body and your blood you shed for me. But this is how I fight my battles. And I believe you've overcome it. I will lift my song of praise for what you've done. For this is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. And this is how this is how I fight my battles. Oh, this is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. In the valley, I know that you're with me, and surely your goodness and your mercy follows me. So my weapons are praise and thanksgiving. This is how I fight my battles. Say, this is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. Oh, it may look like I'm surrounded by you. Oh, I don't have to worry, I'm safe in your hands. Oh, I'm surrounded by you. Hey, this is how I fight this is how I fight my battle. This is how I fight my battle. This is how we win the battle. This is how I fight my battle. This is how. This is how. This is how. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips. And that is how I fight my battles. That is how I fight my battles. That is how I fight my battles. That is how that is how we fight our battles. That is how we fight our battles. That is how we fight our battles. This is how. This is how.
Welcome, House of Destiny. This week we have a conversations, and we've got a special guest. As you know, last week I did Code Breakers with Trey Smith. Well, I have Trey Smith with us again, and we are going to have a conversation about Trey and what Trey's doing. How are you doing today, Trey?
I'm doing excellent, particularly following, because I'm going to take one of these House of Destiny cups back with me. And these, I really like this thing. I got this, and this is the name of your father's ministry. And so you and I had gone to Israel based on one of his prophecies that he had. This was years ago.
2018, when he moved the embassy.
Yes.
Trump moved the embassy.
It was on and there was prophecies about this as well. It's like there should. And what's in the news? What does Kim say? What's happening?
Exactly.
It's sort of like this, isn't it? We're coming up. So we're coming up we're coming up. By the way, in those prophecies on the Supreme Court justice part of it.
Yes.
Even while we sit here. And at the time the show's probably airing, because they're, and I hope it's the good ones that we like that are, because he said 2 will step down
from the embarrassment of what will happen.
Yeah,
actually, what he prophesied.
It's going to be the Democrat ones. We're gonna pray. But he also said they will go to these lengths to get others in to reach their endeavors.
Hack the court.
Yes.
Those are
Isn't it just stunning, Donné? I'll tell you and that's why I want the House of Destiny cut, because it was always House of Destiny.
Yeah. And
that's so appropriate for your father's ministry. And he would say, I see you in the future and you look better than you look right now.
Oh, yes, he did.
This was his tagline. And it's such an appropriate one, even for the prophecies of this hour, because there's a lot of people. I was just thinking that while we were sitting here, and that's what Kim would say. And he said, and it's like for these hours, even that tagline, if you will.
Yeah.
I see in the future, and you look better than you look right now. In fact, such a good tagline. If you remember, Barack Obama had used it.
He did. Although I always saw it as a soft threat when he did it. I never was too keen I was worried a little bit when I heard him say it, although I know for my mom and dad, it was at the same time a very proud moment because they had become citizens of the United States of America and were very proud to become citizens. And no matter what, Dad always honored the office of the president, and he always prayed for whoever the leader was, whether he liked them or not.
Right.
And so, that's something I do try to remember in these difficult times, although with the Biden administration, it's been very difficult. But we still pray for Biden because, no matter what these people are doing, they're lost, they're blinded, and they're bound, and they don't know God. And so it's our job as Christians, I think, to be that shining light in a dark place. And we're trying very hard to do that. But you are shining your own little lights all over the place, as you always have. And I'm very interested to hear about some of the stuff you're working on. And I know everybody watching as well is also going to be very interested to know there's a couple of things you have in the works that will be released soon. And I'm really interested to hear about them. So I'll let you tell everybody what you're working on first.
They're kind of in the same vein as the things that we did when we went down there to Israel, Donné, because these are, well, Israel, for example, is the Holy Land. And this was a place that Kim went to actually quite a lot. He was always praying for America and Israel.
Yes.
And and probably some of the footage from those times that will probably end up in these. But where we're going with it is the Exodus, and so and this became so. There have been two times actually, Donné, that I've tried to put this film together, and one was about 5 years ago, maybe, and it was actually when I was courting my wife, and I got a phone call that your house has been flooded, and I was so devastated.
I remember that.
And I had that whole film, my computer, and so here's where it turns out stuff that goes underwater doesn't work anymore. So but a lot of the, and I had this thing together. Now, had I put it together then, Donné, it wouldn't be the film that I'm sitting here talking to you about now. Because during some of these times that we're in where people they feel like there's a veil under the nation. What's going to happen next? And it looks dark. It'll end well, guys. That part will end well. But on the way there, I just wanted to have a good time putting something together. And for whatever, and so I started in on that again. And I realized that the Joseph parts needed to have all the Joseph stuff. And there's tons of artifacts. In fact, you sent me some things on Joseph.
Joseph and the coat of many colors.
Yes. Well, even some of the sites that you had told me about, Donné, like Amarna, and you extensively sent me some things on Akhenaten, which was really interesting. I would never go do this twice because because a lot of those places are far more dangerous, and I'm glad I didn't look at it even at the time, because when I got back and started looking at where we were paying people to take us, these are not, And
this is when you were in Egypt?
Yes, okay. I wouldn't want to go do
I remember when you went to Egypt and you weren't very impressed. I remember you saying to me, there's no way these people built the pyramids.
Well,
and you got so sick too, didn't you?
Well, I think that's a running joke. I was looking at a meme this morning. No one debates whether what, I'm gonna not go there. What I'm gonna state is that boy, I tell you, a lot of all of those things and craftsmanship that you see at that time. Much of this comes from those time frames, and I don't think you ever would have heard of Egypt really without Joseph. This is where the prosper of Egypt, or a substantial portion of it, came from, and the evidence for all of it is overwhelming. But more than this, just a fun time going through it. We've been building CGI models of the sites. We're gonna destroy Egypt in CGI with the plagues, and even the locusts look good that are gonna come at you. I'll show you the locust later. But once I got into making these things, I realized I just wanted to kind of go all the way with it. And
so will there be two separate films, Joseph and then Exodus?
The Joseph one will come. The Joseph one will be out here in just probably a few weeks, not more than very soon. And
Okay.
I think you're going to be impressed. But more than that, I think it'll be a fun thing.
Yes.
There's a lot of heaviness.
Mm.
And they're releasing this new Indiana Jones 5. I'm expecting to be disappointed. I hope not, but I always loved Indiana Jones.
We did too. My dad even we were fans of the Indiana Jones movies. I think the first time we ever came, or one of the times we came when we still lived in South Africa and we were visiting in America, and we took one of those Hollywood tours where they drive you by the stars' houses, and Harrison Ford's house was the one. And I remember us getting out of the car and like trying to look and see if we could see him in the windows. Because Dad was a fan. Yeah, we loved those Indiana Jones movies.
There's a story about really how Kim's ministry started here in the United States that I've always loved. I've only heard it on audio tape, but it was when you were just a baby or small or young and they were coming here to the United States. And your dad, and they were at the airport, I think in New York. And it was you, your mom, and your dad. And he didn't know what Thanksgiving was. This is an American thing. So in South Africa, you know.
Yeah, we didn't know.
And but the airlines were loaded. And so we're just overwhelmed. And he was there in New York at the airport, and he went over to the counter. Let's say it was Delta. I can't remember which one.
I think it was Delta, actually.
Oh, was it Delta? But he went over and he asked the airline guy. He says, are there any flights? And they kind of chuckled and said, "Sir, come on, it's Thanksgiving."
It's Thanksgiving, right?
Obviously there's not any flights. And so Kim kind of came back over and he sat down, and even wealthy people had put themselves on we're on waiting lists for, here's a bunch of extra money if you can get me on a flight. And Kim really didn't, and you guys were there on the floor, and you were hoping to get a flight to Florida, wherever you needed to get somewhere there in Florida. Kim did. This was how the ministry started in America, or some version thereof.
Yes, it is, yes.
And so Kim's there, and he felt in his spirit to go ask them again. And Kim thought, no, I say that would, but he did. He went back over, and he says, has there been anything that's changed? Or anything, and are there any things that, and the guy says, kind of chuckles, but then looks at your dad and sees you and your mom there, just in a corner in the floor there, and says, he says, let me just go look one more time. And he goes on the computer and he looks, and he says, I don't know if this will help you, but there's a flight going to Florida. And he said, it's leaving in a few minutes, and it's going to pick people up. And then, and your dad said, he said, and we were put in there, and we were even put in the first class.
There's no one
we
on the
got
plane?
to eat the first class food while everyone else was waiting. And we went to exactly where we were supposed to go. And this story really dawned on me a lot, because that's how a ministry that does the kind of things that's how it should start.
Yeah.
And that's a story that just goes with the start of Kim Clement in this ministry. And it's how the Lord leads other people in a lot of different ways. But I always thought, these are the kind of stories that go along with a man that would tell you the kind of things that he's here to tell you. Yeah. That's what he always said. The Lord brought me to America, and from South Africa. And even some of these people that I really have been kind of an inspiration to the biblical archeology stuff. One of them is Ron Wyatt. And a lot of that stuff, by the way, Ron lived here in Tennessee. So his, all these little artifacts and things he was going here, there, and yonder to go get, he would come back here and he'd put them together and get arrested in foreign countries and be lucky to come home. And this is why I'd be concerned. But one of the more controversial ones was this dig site he had right out there by places we went to, where you have the place of the skull, where you see the skull and the crosses were. So Ron was digging there, and he believed that the Ark of the Covenant was there. Now, I really don't know whatever happened with that story, but I know he spent a lot of years. He would fly back and forth, and he'd spend months up there digging, and then he'd go home. On one of these occasions, there was, the whole area was kind of locked off. He's the one, by the way, so it's run largely, I think, by the Catholics now. But he's the one that cleaned that whole area up. There was junk and trash. This is in the early 90s or late 80s or thereabouts, right? And so, but one day they were out there digging and kind of felt like it was just endless. And I also know that feel like this is just going to go on and on. And they were digging. And he said there was a man that came in, and it said he looked like he was in old Hebrew garb or old Arabic clothes, but they were nice. And he said, and it was him and this other guy that were digging. For some reason, it was just them there. They saw this man just come to one of those little balconies where you've been, and you guys did music up there. Probably, maybe that same one.
Could be.
And the man said, I just want to say God bless you for what you're doing here. But there was something so unusual about this man that Ron said, well, are you from here, sir? And he said, no, I'm not from here, but I just wanted to stop by and tell both of you, thank you for what you're doing here. And he said, well, where are you from? And he said, well, I'm on my way from South Africa to the New Jerusalem. And God bless you. And Ron said that he went up there and he couldn't find the man. Now, this is in a whole gated area. So he went and asked the ladies at the front. He said, there was a man in this kind of old Jewish garb and all this. And do you know where he went to? And they said, well, sir, there's been no one come through here like that.
It's incredible.
And there's only one way in or out. But I was looking at these old clips and things I would put together, and I thought, he said, I'm on my way from South Africa to the New Jerusalem, and I just wanted to stop by. Now, when Ron sat there with the guy, he said, do you think that was an angel? And Ron said, at least.
At least.
And that particular clip by him just always sort of stuck with me, and I did not notice until recently the part this is back, he said, I'm on my way from South Africa. Why would you
Of all the places. Yeah.
Yes, it's strange, isn't it? I can send you the clip. Here's where, and they're out here, where you guys felt to move to. There's a lot of interesting things and protection over the Midwest, but this is where Ron lived, in this, area.
In this area,
this neck of the woods. And so it's really appropriate you guys are here.
Yes, it is, isn't it? And, speaking of sort of angelic visitation, my dad had a few experiences like that where, for instance, one instance was he had this place he used to go to pray called Cannon Hill. And it's in South Africa, in his hometown of Uitenhage, which is actually not called Uitenhage anymore. They've changed the name of the town. But there's a park there, and it has this this building that you can go all the way to the top, and then you can see quite far out. My dad loved to pray up high places. He would go up on a mountain or up high. And so this was somewhere he would pray when he was a new Christian. And he was in the park after hours. I think the park was closed, and he'd gone up there to pray. And a police officer came and told him, no, you're not supposed to be there. And so my dad said, oh, sorry, I was praying. I'll leave. It's fine. And the officer said, well, what about the other man that was with you? And my dad said, well, there was no other man with me. I was alone praying.
Right.
But the police officer had seen him with someone. So I definitely not only believe in those things, but I know that it happened to my dad from his own testimonies more than once. I mean, there were other experiences he had that he shared over the years, but that's one that stuck out to me. That is something that occurs, and it's quite extraordinary because of what it does for the person. Yeah. That, like what did it do for Ron White, or what did it do for Kim Clement in that moment? Yeah. It sealed something in them that whatever they were experiencing there, whatever they were doing there, they got a confirmation that was, to their face. That's pretty miraculous, incredible. And I do believe that those things can and do happen. Still today, there's nothing stopping that from happening right now.
It happens a lot. Yeah, I think
it does happen a lot.
It happens a lot.
I think we may start to see these kind of things happen more.
We're going to.
As you see a manifestation of evil throughout the earth so prevalent that God always will have a counter.
Evil increases, and this is what your dad was stating, that it's going to backfire. All these things that we're walking through are going to backfire.
Yes.
And in the midst, but there's something about South Africa, and I because there's just and they're interesting Christians. I mean, you would never go to South Africa and tell the men you're going to dress like women or these other kind of things. It just
no. Nowhere in Africa right now. They're not okay with that. That's for sure.
Yeah, the men are men there, and it's just the way it is. And they also are kind of that way. They're with the Lord. There's they really, there's not a wishy-washiness to them, and I just think the Lord, and also that country was dedicated to the Lord at its onset, and I mean the South, he had said, if you'll save our lives, then we'll just dedicate the land to you, and I don't think the Lord has forgotten that with America, with Israel, and the only thing but in the midst of that. One of the so Ron in his life, he was a lot of these little artifacts he would go find, and people would say, well, how do you have this guy finding this much stuff? Yeah. Well, one of the reasons is because he was looking for it. Yeah. There's very few people looking for the stuff. And he was taking the Word of God to its word, that, that the sites are roughly over here. And so if you're looking over here and you're looking for it, particularly if the Lord's leading you, you're stumbling into all this stuff.
How interesting, too.
Yeah. I mean, he spent a lot of time in the. So commonly, one of the guys that helped us get some footage, named Andrew Jones, and he's been out there at that what's called the Deepen site. That's where Ron believed Noah's Ark was. And by the way, my thoughts on that are this: that it has not been confirmed yet or alleviated. Right. And you've got two major camps of thought on that. And I think it's time for some of the larger answers in Genesis, for example, to, so you've got some camps that'll say, well, it's been debunked. No, it hasn't. Yeah. And in fact, the more they do scans over it, the more you're seeing the shape of what really looks like a boat under there. One way or the other, that question needs to go ahead and be answered. Mm-hmm. And creation groups have the ability to do it. And I know that Andrew, on what he has to work with, every time he makes headway on it, it just looks more impressive. And I have a feeling, I don't know, the more I look at it, it's just in the right area. It's in a mudslide that came off the mountain. It's the right length.
I've seen it. I know what you mean. Yes.
And it's called Deepen because this is the name of the Turkish pilot. So it's in Turkey who first spotted it from the air, and it immediately looks like it's got a shape to it like a boat. And so you're looking at it, you're like, that looks like a boat.
About right. Yeah.
And the fact that it measures right is another.
That's crucial, I think, too, is because those measurements are explicitly detailed in the Bible.
Right.
And so you do have a comparative.
Well, this would be, so if you use the Egyptian cubit, I mean, this comes out within, you're within a few inches of this is a long thing. And so, they need to dig. And if you find a boat under there, it's, it probably doesn't say Noah and Sons on it, but I mean, it's...
we are living in a time, even if you just listen to my mom and what she talks about often, we're living in a time where a lot of things seem to be increasing in speed at fulfillment. So it's like in 1948, Israel became a nation. Now you start to see what appears to be, as far as eschatology is concerned, starting to come together, and it's happening very quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised if we started to discover more, even just the giants.
Yeah.
How much evidence of giants have been covered up?
Yeah.
We know, how many times they've discovered whole towns of giant skeletons and remains.
Yeah.
And then they just disappear every time, into the basement of the Smithsonian or the Vatican, wherever they're putting it. But for whatever reason, and I'm sure that it could be pretty obvious if we were to delve into that, there are things that have been pushed aside and covered up for convenience.
Yeah.
And in this time where so much is being exposed, I think this kind of stuff is going to start to tumble out as well.
It becomes, okay, so, all right, so in this new film that I'm putting together, you don't know how many times, and I've almost wanted to do a secondary thing on this later, just to show, like in the university documentation of things, and I'm not talking about 50 years ago, because all the solid stuff that I'll use, like in Egyptology's case, this would be people like Flinders Petrie, that everybody agrees this dude's just awesome, right? So today, he wouldn't even be considered an archaeologist, right? Because, well, I mean, how could he be? How could you support him at all, particularly if you vote Democrat? I mean, he's out there with a gun. He really will shoot at you, right? And he's got lots of examples of this, right? Because that's how you defend the site, all right? Because you're going to have people come and try and take it away and steal the artifacts.
I hadn't even thought about that.
And this is a real deal.
Yeah.
The people that write about this stuff now are back in, they're not going to go out there where Mike and I went to in Amarna. They can't. It's dangerous, They're going to write about it and tell you that, all of this stuff is just not biblical. And I began to go through and see this and break down, because they do this I promise you, they're doing it in medicine, they're doing it, and it's not even, like my wife will say, she'll say, well, they know they're hiding the truth. I'm not even sure of that. It's like what Trump would say, that they're just stupid. Because you might think that there's some agenda behind them where they don't know any better than to say, well, if it's the Bible, I disagree. They're not any smarter than that.
Yes.
There's not some elaborate plan behind them, and you know that when you get to know them, because they're not smart enough for an elaborate plan. It's just, if it sounds like Bible, then it's not right. And they do this over and like you'll read university presentations on, you name it, in Egyptology. If it sounds or looks like the biblical perspective, all they know for certain is it's not that.
And they're going to shut it down and not even look at it.
Oh, not only this, they'll go on and on and on about it.
Yeah.
Basically, what they're stating is, I know it looks like the biblical story, but we all know that would be a conspiracy. And you hear this word over and over, conspiracy, and so many things that you come to the conclusion that almost, whenever you guys say conspiracy, that means we're telling the truth.
Yes.
Now, right? Is that what it means? And it becomes actually your evidence, right? So you state, how do you know this is correct? Well, because those people didn't like it. And it's true, right?
And just without even looking at it, would just automatically have auto answers.
It becomes part of the evidence, right?
Yeah.
How do you know that's probably the biblical artifact? Because he told me it wasn't. Right?
And like you said, a lot of people aren't actually getting up and going anymore. They're just using the internet and listening to what other people say, and they've been programmed to push anything biblical aside because of this rift. It's completely unnecessary between science and religion, who actually should be symbiotic, if you think about it. If the scientific discovery is basically just discovering what God did and how he did it. Yeah. And so for there to even be a divide there, it doesn't really make sense.
No,
except
it's a demonic
for,
thing.
It is, but also because I think the history of science and the history of the church and the way that they've interacted over the millennia have caused, this rift between them that the enemy definitely put there. But if you look at it from a modern perspective, it's almost like, why are you even trying to argue that? Like, it's not that crazy to think that there's a God. I mean, it's more crazy to me to think that this all just happened on its own.
Yeah.
By accident. That seems crazier to me.
Yeah.
So there are those sort of hard, wired ways of thinking in people that unfortunately keep them from discovering the truth.
Well, even if they didn't believe there's a God, I mean, here's the thing: is that this stuff just is what it is. I mean, they're destroying history is what they're doing. You know what? They destroy everywhere they go.
That's what the devil does.
People running things that are just shouldn't be there.
Yes.
And it's unclear how they got there. And so you'll go back and you can even see it bright, shining, and clear, let's say, in Egyptology. So where's the Flinders Petrie today, right? They'll all agree that that's a magic man of Egyptology. And I mean that literally because he's out there fighting for the sites. You wouldn't have them. The people today could never write that stuff up or defend a site or protect it. They can't even go in the right bathrooms. Much less defend an archeological site, right? They're off on important business. I guess, right? Literally. No, it's going to be. I think you're going to. I think you're just going to have a really good ride on it, and I've always wanted to do a film that looks like a film. Yeah. And it does that on this one.
And I know you've been working quite hard, especially with the Exodus. You have something to do with the parting of the Red Sea.
Well,
that you're working on.
So I think quite a few of the people that I'm working with now, I believe the Lord brought them in. And maybe this is also happening in a lot of ways to a lot of people's lives. So, for example, I had a friend that was, you would call it the Trump derangement syndrome. This is a real thing, by the way.
It is a real thing.
I took it lightly when people were stating this, but I knew one of them, and that has it. And it's it's a real thing. You think, I'm telling you on this screen, you think it's a trite or just a joke on it. No, it's real. And I worked with a guy like this for a lot of years. He helped with my stuff over time. Really nice guy, really very sweet man. But I realized that part of the Trump derangement syndrome includes you're telling them things and they don't, very basic things. They'll even be life things. See, they're going to damage you without even knowing they're damaging you. Because they've got this other set of stuff that overrides everything, even to their own detriment. And it's going to hurt you too.
Even if no one is talking about anything to do with Trump.
Yeah.
I've actually been in comment threads and discussions where nothing that was being discussed had anything to do with him. But as soon as things get a little bit difficult, they just throw Trump.
It impacts everything in the world.
And it definitely, to me, when I look at that, that is demonic. It's a demonic messing with people's minds.
But for me, had that not been the case, in this one example that I'm thinking of, it got to such a bad point, because I would have just kept working with the guy on things that we do at God and because he's just that nice of a guy in some sense, that even though, a lot of the things I did with him, they weren't great. And a lot of times I would overpay for, because I really, as always, there's water under the house or, there's always some calamity. And this is a part of it. This is a part of the Trump derangement syndrome. This is who that crowd is. It's always the crowd that's got a crisis happening. Always. Every call includes a crisis, and it was everybody else's fault, not theirs. Right? It's always the same story over and over. And if you get caught up in it, you will always be caught up in it.
Yes.
So the moment that I began seeing that, and I was like, I've had enough. Right? The Lord brought in some great people, and this includes where I was going with the CGI thing, even with the cool-looking locusts. That there were times I tried to hire stuff to be done in the past, and I kind of gave up on it because I would look at it and I'd be like, this just doesn't look, But the Lord brought some guys in, because it's not just paying for something, in a sense, right? So the people you work with or in your life, they affect everything.
Yes.
And and this guy came in, he said, I can make the Red Seas part. And I was like, I've seen some CGI stuff. And I know, But he kind of, and then when I saw it, I was like, wow, I was like, can you make plagues? And I've been having fun, a lot of fun just making this stuff, because it does
sound like fun, yes.
Yeah,
be fun
for me it is, and it's kind of an escape from I think the heaviness will break, and I think most of the heaviness, honestly, will be on the people that have the Trump derangement syndrome, because it's for them to wake up, right? The rest of us actually bear their burden in a sense. Right, so
we are responsible also to help, help these people who are, blinded.
Suffering from the Trump derangement.
Yeah, and not just with the Trump derangement syndrome or just with Trump, with so many other things. I think that as Christians, we're responsible to be, like my dad would say, piercing the darkness with light. So we're supposed to go into those dark places and be a light. And I was recently looking at the story about the man that was possessed with the demons.
You actually can't do it though. You actually can't help them if you allow the detriment that they've got spiritually. So when you're on the airplane and the thing is, looks like it might crash or whatever, you always put the mask on yourself first.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, very good.
So, but go ahead, honey.
No, I was just looking at the story, I Am Legion. Not the story, I Am Legion, but in the Bible where Jesus cast the demons out of the possessed man, and when he asked who they were, they said, I am Legion. The man said, I am Legion, meaning someone was saying a legion is 6,000 soldiers in a Roman army. Right. So this man was so full of demons. And Jesus casts the demons out of him into the swine that run into the sea. We all know the story. Well, what was going on there, if you read around, not just that particular, but what was going on before and after, is the people in the town they had a certain way of how they believed things. Mm-hmm. They were not Jewish, and they had a way of how they believed spiritual things worked and how to cast out someone who's full with demons. They didn't. Everything they tried had failed. They'd put him out to live where the graveyard was, and where the dead were buried. And he was harming himself out there. But they had to put him out there because he was a threat to the people in the village or the little town there. And Jesus comes in and casts all those demons out of him. Yeah. And heals him, and the people there didn't know how to deal with it, and they told Jesus to leave. Mm-hmm. Because even though what they wanted was for this not to be a problem for them anymore, he didn't do it the way they wanted him or the way they anticipated he would do it. Yeah. And it came time for Jesus to leave, and the man wanted to go with him, the one who the demons were cast out of, wanted to go with Jesus. And Jesus would not allow him to go. Yeah. And he wasn't rejecting him. He was saying to him, you are the only light now in this place because they're sending me away. But you were healed, and so I'm leaving you here. I'm obviously paraphrasing the scripture verse. He left him there, not to abandon him, but because the only light in that place was him. Yeah. The one who'd been healed.
They all had the same demons that he had.
Right.
Just not
so we look at what's happening en masse to a lot of people. Yeah. And there's a lot of hope just in Christ, that if that can be cast away, that they can then become light. And that light can then spread and spread and spread and spread and spread. And I think, that's part of God's plan that I've been observing. But I think that story is so interesting because, you sort of feel bad for that man. He was filled with the demons. He was rejected. He was living in the graveyard. He was, a legion of demons in him. And Jesus casts them out. And, of course, what we want to do is stay. But sometimes, God will have us sometimes be in a difficult place, in a dark place, because we're the only light that's there. And so I think when examining these behaviors in people and the things that they're doing, we can, as Christians, especially prophetic people who have an eye to recognize a spiritual problem. And without question, what we're dealing with worldwide right now, there is a spiritual war above anything else. And that battle of good and evil is brazen and blatant. And so, even someone like you, the things that you're doing are, number one, very interesting. A lot of people are interested in ancient things. A lot of people are interested in archeology. And so you may be able to grab the attention of someone who otherwise might never have looked at it from a biblical perspective. And then the way in which you lay things out, which I enjoy so much, always. So I'm super excited to see these things that you're making. I know with Joseph, I have my own personal interest because I did send you all that stuff. And what he was talking about there is that years ago, I sent my dad an email where I had been taking a humanities class on ancient cultures and just happened to recognize this character. This historical character in Egypt. I just remembered the Bible and verses from the Bible. I said, my goodness, that couldn't be Joseph.
Well,
And there he was. Of course, the professor wouldn't acknowledge that.
This
I
was
didn't
one-
bother, but
well, they're not going to.
but he was buried in the Valley of the Kings.
Well, that whole so in that whole area that you sent me over with that king that you have all that interest in, that was a hard one to get to, and there were a lot of fascinating stuff. Even the pillars out in that area. I mean, but yeah, I don't want to go back twice. I'm glad we.
I remember.
No, it's way out there, and I. Had I known some of the things, because when I got back from out there, Donné, I realized that a lot of these places that we went to are just, not safe at all. I mean,
yes, I remember.
And so I'm thankful we did it and we got this stuff. And by the way, Donné, there wouldn't have been another way to get it, because had I not gone with Mike, because you can't, a lot of this stuff that we got, you can't buy. And in fact, we, some of the footage we got from several of the tombs, it was Andrew, who was out there at that Drupanar site, who, a few weeks ago, I wanted footage from several things, but one specific tomb out there that had been closed. A lot of this stuff, I think they know in Egypt, it kind of looks biblical in there.
Yes.
We don't want some more Hebrew stuff found.
They don't want it.
That one happens to be closed, and this. And I told Andrew, I said, tell him, look, and tours and stuff that I do, one of these companies, paid me, and I could get a little extra money if I can get in there and film it. What would it take to do it? And he's very good with all those people, and he gave me this itemized list of what all of the payments would be, the antiquities people and I was like, that's got to be the Lord doing that. And he was like, I'm in Cairo, and I've got 2 days off. He's like, it looks like I can go do it. And that tomb hasn't been filmed or been in 7 years. And trust me, there's stuff in there that I've used in my videos that I knew was in there, like staffs becoming snakes, but I'd never actually filmed it myself. I was relying on people's stuff that they told me was in there and was like 10 years ago. The stuff is more impressive than what I thought I was going to come out with. And Andrew, if it had been anybody but Andrew, like let's say, I mean, there's a lot of really nice people out there, but let's say it was one of these guides or something, and they said, here's, this is going to cost this, and I would have said, no way, But it was Andrew. Even with Andrew, I looked at it and I was like, but I wanted it so badly. And when I looked at how he had itemized it out, and he had the antiquities, and this is what the dudes with the Uzis are going to charge, right?
Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, it's kind right.
I know.
So, and I thought, I just ran over and I wired him the money, because I knew in my heart that the Lord had done that.
Yeah.
Because I also wanted in that tomb real bad. And Andrew did such a wonderful, I was on the cell phone with him, and he was so concerned that he would get all the hieroglyphs.
That's sweet.
He's just, if there were anybody I were going to do a tour with, it would be Andrew, but I still won't. He'll go to sites that I'm probably not going to personally go do again.
Yes, I hear that. I certainly wouldn't. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't go there. So, before we go, because we're running out of time, I want to make sure everybody can find your stuff when you release it. So you're going to have Joseph coming out.
Yes.
And you're going to have the Exodus coming out. And do you use social media?
Well, let's do this 2 different ways, Donné.
Okay.
So that'll come out on godinanutshell.com, and also we still have YouTube, and we plan to keep it that way because I'm careful what I state, and so are you, Donné. And, and by the way, the prophecies your dad did are for, they're for everybody, even people that like what they say or don't like. Yes. If something tends to happen, I find things all the time that I don't like, but I like knowing about the things I don't like because that helps me navigate my life. There's a lot of things in life I don't like, but I need to know them. And they're given in a lot of generalities, I think, for a reason. But here, so God in a Nutshell, and also on that Trey Smith YouTube channel. But this is what I would like you to do as you're watching these videos. I'd really like you to subscribe in all the ways that you can over to the House of Destiny, like on this cup that I'm going to come back to. The House of Destiny, that's the ministry of Donné's father, Kim Clement. And that ministry, part of it started with being in a corner at an airport in New York. And when everybody else was booked, the Lord said, I'm putting you on a plane, and here's even the first class food. When there's no other flight, they didn't know what Thanksgiving was. And Donné, sitting here at this desk, she was small, and she's curled up on the floor, and Kim is trying to figure out what he's going to do for his family on their first trip. And the Lord, I will tell you, I'd really like you to subscribe to their things. They have a lot of different things on there. Go over and do that. That's how they know how to communicate with you. And if you can, because these things are a lot of work, even sitting here, it's an honor to even know these people. Donné, her mother Jane. But I think those prophecies that he had were for this time that you're in right now. And there are many people that write me that depend on those. They want to know the opinion of what's happening in these different words that Kim had. Well, so to even know about those words Kim has had taken Donné and her mother and lots of other people that you don't even see, even in this room with me now, a lot of work to get it to try to answer those. And that's for the good guys and the bad guys alike. If you're on the bad guys team, you guys fund foolish stuff all the time. Yeah. Help the people that deliver you the stuff that might even tell you how to work with your bad plan. I pray you turn from, but here's where the Lord, the rain goes on the righteous and the wicked alike. And the prophecies are for everybody. And it takes a lot of work to put them together and to organize them for you. And I would ask you to consider, and I really feel that strongly on my spirit, even if it's a small amount, to consider funding that each month. And I state that because I've been here over the years with them looking at what it takes, and also what it takes to make sure that the people that help put the stuff together get what they live on each month. Yeah. And these are godly people. And I want to just thank you in advance for that. But I wanted to state that on this because I was thinking, this is an unusual thing that the Lord did with your father. It was not, even among, and there's some terribly good people out there. There are other people that I listen to that I'll get a word from. And by the way, the Lord does that for people, but I don't generally, I stick to the Kim things, because if somebody else gets caught in an emotional whim or something, and this happens a lot. With the things that the Lord gave your dad, I not only think they're for this hour, but he specifically wanted all of those things highlighted. There was just something different about Kim. And the Lord really loved Kim. The Lord knew, no, come get on the plane.
Yes,
it's an empty one, and it's going where you're going.
On that Thanksgiving, I was about a year old.
Yeah, do you remember that?
I do. Well, I don't remember. I don't
really
remember
it, but you know, was the story close?
The story was exactly right. That's exactly
was it?
Exactly what happened. It was Thanksgiving Day, and Dad had kept trying to get us on that flight, and he had failed. It looked like we were going to be stuck in the airport. And then, of course, I was a baby. I must have been a year old. And exactly what you said happened is he tried one more time, and they had a flight that was empty because they were sending the plane to pick up staff to bring back. So to pick up flight attendants and stuff. So that's why it was empty. So they said, well, we can put you on this one. And we got to sit in first class. We got to, well, I don't remember it again, but this is my parents telling me. If my mother was here, she'd be able to tell you a little more. But that is exactly what happened. And it's actually pretty miraculous the way God continued to do things that way with my dad over the course of his entire life. And also something else that you said about, people can get swayed in the emotion of the moment right now. Yeah. Is one thing also about my dad, as much as I hate that he's not here, is that because he's not here, he's not going to be swayed. Yeah. He's not going to pick a side. Like I've said to we've all lived through this, and obviously I know which side he would pick. But still, he wasn't here to form an opinion during that divide. Yeah. He had already gone to be with the Lord, and everything was prophesied in advance. And that's how prophecy is supposed to work.
Whoever did this, let's just, for the sake of argument, managed to make, and the Lord saw that, first of all, your father entered heaven with the highest honors you can,
I know he
according to
did.
the book we read.
Yes.
And more than that, managed to take those prophecies that they were probably scared of
Yeah.
and make them far more popular than they. And I'll tell you, and that's kind of a description that I have of this entire time frame, is there was a man that said he kept hearing the word backfire, and that's what about their wickedness, that they would do this, but it would just backfire and backfire and backfire. And
I think we're already starting to see that happen.
it's becoming visible.
It's so exposed. So
Yeah.
much of the enemy's plans are exposed. And the more good, I'm going to try to put this simply, the more good that happens,
Yes.
the more the enemy manifests and exposes
Yes.
more and more. And again, I keep trying to tell people, we have to remember to be ready to grab those people who have been deceived
Yes.
and embrace them instead of, I told you so, we were right, you were wrong.
that's a good point.
We, as Christians, need to be able to bring these people in when they start to realize what's actually going on. And I think a lot of it will happen as it touches their own lives. People will start to realize, and I think that's what this time period that we are living through right now is about. I think it's about God loves all of his creation and wants everyone to get a chance,
Yeah.
at least a chance to know what the truth is. So like you said before, sometimes the truth is very hard to see, but we've still got to see it.
These things were real, all of them. So, and that applies. So, all of the things that they told you weren't real or turn out to be real.
Yeah.
So that's from the prophecy things to the Greg Locke speaks at some of these events, and I will tell you this deliverance. And notice that the heavy fights against him at the moment he started doing the deliverance. It's like the story of the Legion you were talking about. That it's a heavy thing. Those are. And also the...
Not a lot of people doing as much deliverance as they used to as well.
No,
so.
but it's coming. So I went through one of these with Henry Schaefer, and this was a lot of years ago. And I'll tell. And Henry's kind of an interesting dude. He's the same one that did it. So Greg Locke was a hardcore Baptist. I don't know. His story is, I didn't believe in that.
Yeah, right.
But then I changed my mind, and I like this better than the political stuff. But I remember going through it with Henry, and this was many years ago. And he's got this accent that really goes along with it too. But I remember this point, and he says, "Now I know you didn't think this stuff was real. You think you know it's real now? Get up in there. Come on, I'm talking. No. I want to see the demon in your eyes. Get up there. We ain't gonna be playing these games. I ain't gonna do this all night.
Yeah.
We can do this a friendly way or a not friendly way. This ain't demon day." And he's got this kind of accent to it,
But it does add to
Oh, it does. But and I was very thankful for that experience because, you can't unlive that. And so what they're and Henry, there's a lot of people that I know that I've even used in videos in the past who do a lot of the different deliverance things, and very nice people. And but I think a lot of people just want to see weird stuff move around the rooms and things.
Yeah.
So this will end up on video, and I've used clips that a lot of really great people. But in Henry's case, it's not like that. There's something very. He's a very godly man, but I'll tell you, there's just something very professional about it. He's not. When he's talking to the things, you can, and trust me, you're not going to argue, was it real?
Yes.
And it's, they really do answer to the name of Jesus. And particularly if done by somebody that's not really playing games with them.
Right.
And that's why the people wanted Jesus out of the town, because it's like the difference between the guy, that kind of wants to record that, both the demon and the guy are sort of playing games with each other. Is what's really happening, right? The demon's moving stuff and the guy's getting excited. They've really become friends in a weird way. You see it? When you've got someone actually making them go, yes, all of these things are coming.
I think it's a necessary thing. And I know that when we did the Reawaken America tour in Nashville, it was at Pastor Greg Locke's church, which is my church. And
really?
Yes, well, he's only 30 minutes away, so that's where I go to church.
Really?
Yes, and one thing that God kept saying...
I didn't know that.
Yes, no, Greg Locke is my pastor. But, one thing that kept happening while I was there to do the tour is God kept telling me, Locke has the key. Locke has the key.
Locke has the key.
And it was like an itch. I had to tell him.
Yeah.
I kept... Oh, no, it's my imagination. But by the end of the day, it was bothering me so much, I just grabbed him and I said, look, I have to tell you. Or maybe I texted him. I might have texted him later, but I said, look, the whole time I was there, God was telling me, Locke has the key. Now, I don't know why, but I do feel that deliverance has something to do with it. And I think that we see this manifestation all over the world, particularly, though, in America, which is under attack. You see these manifestations of evil, of insanity, and that is demonic. And what we need is people who are anointed in deliverance to step forward and be bold, like Pastor Greg Locke has been doing, which is why he's getting attention, because he's doing a difficult thing.
The demons, I think, are the most scared of it because it really hits the core of it, right? So it's and you can't unlive it. I mean, you can't unlive that. So, we're on the right track with all of it, Donné.
I think we are. And I'm really excited for people to see, I think we are definitely out of time now, but I'm really excited for people to see what you're working on, because I always enjoy it. Trey will send me little clips, little graphics, little things, and say, what do you think of this? What do you think? And it's so exciting and it's so good. And my mom too, we just love your stuff. And everybody watching right now, I know you guys do too. So make sure that you go to godinanutshell.com, or you can look at his YouTube channel, and you'll be able to get updates on when these things are going to be released. He's working very, very hard on them right now. And I know it's going to be worth it. I know it's totally going to be worth the wait. And, also just thank you for joining me today and discussing all these things with me, because it is so interesting. And I know everybody watching and listening, they also feel the way we do. And I'm sure we're very kindred in how we're seeing things and understanding them. And so I just want to thank you for taking the time today and doing this conversations with me. It is technically an interview, but we call it conversations because my dad called it that, because what he actually wanted was, instead of like the official, I'm the interviewer asking questions, he liked the idea of two people just talking.
Yeah.
And then everybody watching is sort of listening in on and a part of that conversation. And so that's actually what this is all about. And so, yes, thank you for joining me today. And everybody watching, there you go. We had our conversation with Trey Smith. He's definitely going to come back, especially once some of these are released.
Yes.
Then you must come back and give us updates.
I would love to do that. Let's just you know what? Let's just pray for I want to thank all of you that have watched, and I want to thank all of you that have, thank you very much. And I think you'll be happy.
Definitely. I have no doubt. So, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for Conversations. We'll see you next time.
Over 40 years ago, Kim and I embarked on a ministry journey that has now become a global network through the power of the internet. As part of this pioneering work, we are gathering people from all over the world to worship together, grow in our faith, and inspire hope through an uplifting message. We are dedicated to reaching out with God's message of hope and love to all without discrimination or judgment. We invite you to join our House of Destiny free membership that allows you to connect with members from around the world. Through our prayer wall, you can post your requests and have others join us in prayer. It's so powerful when the saints gather and believe for a breakthrough. We invite you to join today. Simply click the online church login and sign up. Partnerships are vital to our global outreach, enabling us to take the love and hope of Jesus Christ to those who need it most. Our Boots on the Ground Partnership Program physically ministers to those in desperate situations all over the world. The Israel Partnership furthers Kim's legacy of outreach to Israel and Jewish people worldwide. We invite you to become a partner today. We are here for you, and we have worked hard to provide the resources and tools to help you grow in your faith. Join us today and be part of a community that inspires hope, brings restoration to life, and often healing from the past. Together, we can make a difference, and we thank you for your ongoing support.